Ever had a really bad week? For example, I just got fired from my job. But you know what can be even more disturbing than potentially losing your home or going hungry? Exactly, the 10 movies I've prepared for you. Into today's cauldron, I've thrown your best recommendations, sprinkled in some spices with my favorite picks I watched this week, and tried to serve the final dish with improved editing, so you can enjoy your meal like in the finest YouTube restaurant.
It's one of his classics.
But before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Leave a comment about your favorite disturbing movie that no one has seen before. So, let's start from number 10. Number 10, Spider, 2002. Long before lighting burning shows with zombies in 28 years later, before serving his perfect burger in the menu, and even before becoming the face of the one who must not be named, Ralph Fiennes delivered an amazing performance in Spider, directed by David Cronenberg. After making a powerful statement in classic Schindler's List, for me, Ralph Fiennes became an actor who can own any role, a benchmark of exceptional acting. So, Spider is the 8th feature film directed by David Cronenberg, man who's staying behind such movies as Videodrome, The Fly, and Dead Ringers, the legend in cinema world. The film follows Dennis Spider Clegg, a withdrawn and mentally ill man released from a psychiatric institution and placed in a halfway house in the very neighborhood where he grew up. Isolated and fragile, Spider begins obsessively reconstructing his childhood memories in a notebook, trying to piece together a traumatic event involving his parents. As the story unfolds, we witness fragments of his past, a distant father, a warm but troubled mother, and the sudden appearance of a mysterious woman who seems to replace her. But the more Spider revisits these memories, the less stable they become. Gradually, it becomes clear that we are not watching objective reality. We are trapped inside Spider's fractured perception. We'll stop here with the plot, as I want to avoid any spoilers. The film is twisted and has many unexpected turns. I want to be honest, this movie could have been a masterpiece. But, in my opinion, Cronenberg's dark genius slightly outplayed itself. The film is carried by outstanding performances and a powerful depiction of madness, yet the story feels a bit underwhelming. And for some reason, I just wasn't fully engaged while watching this film. The cinematography, the slow buildup of tension, and the portrayal of madness actually reminded me of Possum, which we talked about earlier. The themes are different, of course, but somehow Possum felt more compelling to me. Anyway, I've actually seen a lot of positive feedback about it, so maybe it's just my personal perception. If you've already watched this movie, let me know in the comments if you liked it, especially if you're a fan of Cronenberg's work, so you can compare it to his other films. Number 9, When Evil Lurks, 2023. When Evil Lurks is the second film by Demian Rugna, whose debut was the widely talked about Aterrados. You might have missed his first project, but despite a less than perfect plot and some questionable character actions, it was packed with amazing moments, creative jump scares, and clever techniques. Just like in Aterrados, the Argentine director uses unusual but genuinely creepy visual techniques, while also delivering a fresh take on the horror genre as a whole. When Evil Lurks gives the viewer a fresh take on obsession, and the film itself is packed with intense, hard-hitting scenes. The plot is following. Two brothers living in a remote rural village discover that something is terribly wrong in a nearby farmhouse. A local man has become what they call a rotten, a person possessed and slowly decaying from the inside, waiting to give birth to pure evil. Instead of handling the situation carefully, fear and panic take over. The brothers decide to move the infected man away from their land, hoping to avoid disaster. But by breaking the strict rules about how to deal with the possessed, they unknowingly trigger something far worse. As the situation escalates, the film becomes less about stopping the possession and more about surviving the consequences. Every attempt to fix the problem only deepens the nightmare. This film has some truly disturbing moments. Demian Rugna scares you not only with demons and possession, but also with situations that feel painfully real. For example, the scene with the dog really worked for me. I actually knew a family in real life who went through a very similar situation with a tragic outcome. To sum up, Aterrados and When Evil Lurks are both interesting films, and if you're a fan of the horror genre, I highly recommend checking them out. I believe you won't regret it. Now, let's take a look at a film whose ending still remains one of the most talked about in the director's career, let's move to number 8. Number 8, Gozu 2003. It's time once again to talk about a film by the famous horror director Takashi Miike. Last time we discussed Visitor Q, a film that can shock an unprepared viewer. Today, however, we're looking at a movie that came out a little later, Gozu 2003. At first, I thought about talking about 13 Assassins, which I watched recently. Essentially, it's a kind of version of Seven Samurai in Miike's interpretation, with his signature brutality and chaotic energy. Yet, this feels more like an action movie with a few disturbing Miike moments, rather than the fully disturbing horror film I promised you today. That is why today, we are talking about Gozu, a film that shocks you within the first 5 minutes. Anyone who's seen it knows what I mean. Gozu 2003 is a Japanese film that blends drama, mystery, crime, horror, and thriller elements, while also exploring themes of sexuality and identity. The plot goes like this. A man named Minami is sent to take care of Ozawa, a senior member of his Yakuza clan who has started acting strangely and apparently has gone completely insane. The first 5 minutes of the film will make that very clear for everyone. So, Minami is supposed to take Ozawa to a certain place to resolve the problem, but during the incident, he seemingly kills Ozawa. On the surface, it seems like ordinary situation for criminals' world, except the body mysteriously disappears, and Minami finds himself in a bizarre, surreal world, filled with an endless series of strange and often terrifying characters. The journey becomes winding and disturbing, diving deep into the darkest corners of human psychology and Japanese folklore. The film features an unusual narrative structure, bizarre imagery, and a hallucinatory atmosphere that leaves you with mixed feelings. Plus, the sound design is incredible and will definitely catch your attention. The opening and final scenes of this film alone earn it a well-deserved today's number 8 spot. I'd love to discuss the final meaning and ambiguity of the film with you, but that would be mega spoilers. So if you've seen it and know what I mean, leave your thoughts in the comments about what you saw and your overall take on the movie. Now, let's move on to number 7. Number 7, Landmine Goes Click, 2015. Landmine Goes Click is a Georgian exploitation thriller that at first glance seems like a very simple and typical story, but unexpectedly turns into a brutal psychological nightmare, with a twist and a rather unusual story of revenge, with hard, unexpected ending. The film begins with a trip of 3 American tourists, Daniel, his girlfriend Alicia, and his best friend Chris, who decide to go hiking in the remote mountains of Georgia. Everything seems calm at first. The scenery is beautiful, they joke around, and even take casual photos to capture the moment. However, the tension quickly rises when Chris accidentally steps on a landmine left over from the Russian-Georgian War. He is literally stuck in place. Any sudden movement could trigger a deadly explosion. To make the situation even worse, somewhere nearby, a sadistic local stranger is wandering around. Someone who is very unlikely to offer any help in this desperate situation. In this film, several plot twists are waiting for you. As the story moves closer to the end, the spiral of revenge escalates and leads to a destructive finale. The ending in particular will most likely shock you. Personally, I did not expect that kind of resolution at all. Unlike the films higher on the list, there are no psychedelic mind games or complex layered plots. This movie is rather straightforward. Many of the characters' decisions will probably frustrate you, and at times the acting feels uneven. But overall, it remains a very interesting piece of low-budget auteur cinema that leaves a lasting impression. Number 6, The Coffee Table, 2022. The Coffee Table is a Spanish psychological drama directed by Calle Casas. It gained wide recognition after a tweet from Stephen King, who said that he liked this film. I love Stephen King's books and the films based on them, and I even covered all of his movie adaptations in one of my older videos. So I gave this Spanish drama a chance, and I wasn't disappointed. The film is very, very difficult to watch. There's no extreme gore, but it ranks on the same level as the other intense entries in this list. The story starts in the most mundane way possible. A young couple buys a new coffee table, a normal piece of furniture, around which a domestic quarrel unfolds. The wife doesn't like the table, but the husband insists on it. Nothing special, no mystery, just life. But then, an event occurs that turns everything in the couple's life upside down and makes their previous little problems seem insignificant, while showing the audience that being fired from a job, like I was, is nothing in comparison. Unfortunately, I can't even hint at what happens because it would immediately ruin the shock effect. From that moment on, the film becomes 90 minutes of pure, concentrated psychological horror. Watching it is extremely difficult, partly because some scenes feel drawn out, in my opinion. The film would have worked better as a short, but for a full-length feature, the actors did an excellent job, and the story is unforgettable, leaving a bitter aftertaste. I'm sure very few people have seen this movie, so I confidently place it at number 6. Number 5, Where the Dead Go to Die, 2012. For number 5, I decided to include not exactly a film, but more of an animation, one that has been terrifying the internet for a very long time. I first saw this project about 10 years ago, and I remember it being actively discussed online. What about you? Have you seen it, or at least heard about it before? I was very surprised to find it on YouTube. That is actually insane how it's still not removed from platform. Revisiting it now, I remembered why it was once recommended as the most disturbing animation movie ever made. The creator of this project, Jimmy Screamerclaws, formerly made this animation entirely on his own. Essentially, this is an experimental, extremely dark, psychedelic horror 3D animation project consisting of 3 interconnected stories. Each story features a demonic creature named Labyrinth. For example, in the first story, we are introduced to a boy named Tommy who lives in a deeply dysfunctional household. He has an abusive stepfather, and the atmosphere at home is filled with fear, control, and psychological pressure. The situation becomes even more disturbing when a strange, demonic dog named Labyrinth appears in his life. Labyrinth can speak and manipulate. At one point, the dog claims that Tommy's mother is pregnant with the Antichrist, and Tommy trusts him. At first, he thinks it's a helper, but over time, Labyrinth gradually leads the boy toward violence and horrific actions. Extremely horrific actions, to be more clear. The story explores the destruction of a child's psyche, the influence of religious fanaticism, and the disturbing blend of internal and external evil. Okay, I am just kidding. I honestly have no idea what the author was trying to say, or how someone could even come up with something like this. If you think you understand it, feel free to explain in the comments under the video. During the viewing, you'll be confronted with scenes that are genuinely disgusting. The voice acting deserves a special mention as well. It adds an extra layer of discomfort to the entire experience. I should also mention that the project has a rating of 3.9. Normally I don't include works with such low scores in my videos, but let's make an exception here. At the very least, it's something you've probably never seen before, and it's absolutely nothing like the movies we usually get. Number 4, No Child of Mine, 1997. No Child of Mine is a British docudrama television film that is based on and attempts to follow real-life events. It documents the true case of a girl named Carrie who suffered abuse from the adults around her throughout her childhood. While the previous entries shock with fictionalized violence, here everything is based on real events, although the names of all participants have been changed. The story follows a young girl named Helen, who from an early age was exploited by adults around her. The film shows how her parents, neighbors, and other adults she should have been able to trust betray her, depriving her of childhood, safety, and support. The plot revolves around Helen's attempts to survive in this horrific situation. Her abusers use psychological pressure, manipulation, and threats to silence her and make her feel completely powerless. The viewer experiences the tragedy through her eyes, her fear, despair, and struggle to hold on to even a tiny piece of normal life. What this poor girl went through with both her mother, father, and all others around her is terrifying. It's hard to comprehend how anyone could treat their own child this way. The most disturbing part is knowing that situations like this are probably still happening somewhere in the world right now. It makes you understand just how devastating exploitation can be for a child's psyche, and how difficult it is to break free from the vicious cycle of abuse. For those who want to watch, No Child of Mine can now be found on YouTube. Placing it at number 4 might not have been entirely accurate, but I found it incredibly difficult to watch, knowing that the story is based on real events. Do you think it's not heavy enough to deserve the number 4 spot on the list? That's all right, because I've prepared 3 extremely hard-to-watch final picks for today. Number 3, Ken Park, 2002. Ken Park is a film by Larry Clark and Edward Lockman that became a major shocker upon its release. The movie explores the lives of teenagers in California, showing their inner struggles, trauma, and the reckless behavior of the adults around them. This is not just a drama. It's a very heavy, at times deeply uncomfortable film about broken families, sexual experimentation, and psychological abuse. It absolutely deserves its number 3 spot, mainly because of one particular scene that personally caught me off guard. In that moment, a well-known actor portrays a young character in an extremely intimate and controversial scene. I was honestly shocked when I realized the director chose to present it completely unfiltered, without cutting away. I can't even describe it, but anyone who has watched the film will immediately understand the scene I'm talking about. It's strictly 18+, and it belongs to a completely different type of movie. The film Ken Park opens with a teenage boy named Ken Park arriving at a skate park. He calmly rides a skateboard for a while, and then, without warning, he takes out a gun and shoots himself. From that moment on, the story shifts to the lives of his friends and acquaintances, showing what was happening in their worlds leading up to his death. Each story focuses on the struggles and tensions within their families, depicting emotional neglect, domestic conflict, and the difficulties of growing up in dysfunctional environments. Rather than following a single linear narrative, the film presents a mosaic of raw and often shocking moments, exploring the darker side of adolescence and suburban life. The style is stark and almost documentary-like, leaving the viewer to confront the character's isolation and emotional turmoil. The movie has extremely disturbing sexual scenes, so be careful if you decide to watch it. And we are moving to number 2. Number 2, Untold Story, 1993. The Untold Story is a Category 3 Hong Kong crime horror film inspired by a real murder case. Directed by Herman Yao and Danny Lee, it tells the story of a brutal crime known as the 8 Immortals restaurant case, which took place in a small restaurant in Macau. The lead role is played by Anthony Wong, and I'm serious, this is one of the most terrifying and compelling portrayals of a cinematic serial killer I've ever seen. To play such a character convincingly, you need to be a true master. Anyone who has watched the film understands just how incredible Wong is in this role. He was rightfully awarded the Hong Kong Film Award for Best Actor. In a previous video, we covered Ebola Syndrome, 1996, also directed by Herman Yao, where Wong played the main role as well. But The Untold Story is even stronger, harder, and more shocking, although Ebola Syndrome shares some similar plot elements. What's most shocking is that The Untold Story actually replicates real events almost entirely, with only a small amount of fiction added. The filmmakers tried to show us what really happened to this psycho in prison, how he committed his crimes, and what he did afterward. The film's story differs somewhat from real events. In the movie, a small-time con artist named Wong Chi Hang, who is obsessed with gambling, flees from Hong Kong to Macau after committing a murder. There, he finds work as a cook in a restaurant famous for its delicious pork buns. Several years later, a local police detective, Officer Lee, begins investigating the mysterious disappearance of Cheng Lam, his wife, and their 5 children, who until recently owned that very restaurant. The business is now being run by Wong Chi Hang, who has no official documents proving ownership. The detective starts to suspect that the new owner murdered and dismembered the family, even serving human meat to customers in the restaurant's buns. In real life, however, the killer's name was Huang Zhiheng. He was also a gambler and had won a large sum of money from the restaurant's owner, Zheng Lin. When Zheng failed to repay the debt a year later, Huang murdered him and his entire family, 10 people in total. The killings were carried out in a manner similar to what is shown in the film. However, the cannibalism element was pure fiction, added to make the story even more horrifying. Though, if you think about it, how much more horrifying can it get? 10 people murdered in a single night, and 6 of them were children. For fans of crime horror and extreme Category 3 Hong Kong cinema, this movie is a must-watch, showcasing both shocking real-life events and one of the finest performances in the genre. It is not on first place today, only because number 1 is 100% real movie with absolutely disturbing real-life scenes. Number 1, Africa Addio, 1966. In Africa, there is only one truly wild animal, the human. These words open the 1966 documentary Africa Addio, directed by Gualtiero Jacopetti and Franco Prosperi. The film is partially political, we'll discuss that at the end, but as a work of cinema, it is exceptional, showing the unfiltered face of brutality. The documentary includes graphic footage of massacres of animals, tribal hunts, executions, even genocidal acts and war crimes. Almost 90% of what is shown in the film is real. The directors of this Mondo shockumentary were even taken to court on accusations that some executions were staged under their direction. However, the charges were never proven and were eventually dropped. The directors themselves have always claimed that they simply filmed what was happening without interfering. Many critics have questioned the ethics of what was shown, accusing the filmmakers of knowing about the killings in advance and documenting them without attempting to stop them. While it's true that they likely couldn't have stopped anything, it's possible that some of these ethical concerns are not entirely unfounded. On the other hand, the fact that the film captures these moments provides unique footage that shocks the vast majority of viewers, offering a stark and unforgettable glimpse into human and societal violence during this turbulent period. I believe movies like this should exist and be shown more often, to help people understand that our world isn't always a happy place. The film includes actual footage from the Zanzibar Revolution, where the documentary crew captured from a helicopter the roundup and execution of thousands of Arab civilians. People were marched at gunpoint and shot, with bodies left in mass graves and scattered across beaches. Absolutely terrifying. If you find it hard to watch what humans do to animals, it's better not to watch this film at all. Many of the scenes in the film are absolutely unique, as they were captured only by the director's crew, offering footage that cannot be found anywhere else. However, in the political context, the film remains extremely controversial. Some critics accuse Africa Addio of promoting a pro-colonialist or biased worldview because it focuses almost exclusively on the horrors and fails to provide much context about the long history of exploitation by colonial powers. The opening narration in some versions even suggests that African nations were abandoned by Europe just when they needed her the most, framing independence as something that led mainly to chaos rather than self-determination. This has led to strong accusations that the film imposes a European point of view, depicting Africans as raw, wild, brutal, modern-day savages, instead of offering a balanced look at the complex realities of decolonization. Many scholars and critics argue that this lack of context distorts the viewer's understanding and can reinforce stereotypes about Africa. What do you think about that? This film is extremely hard to watch. Watch it only if you are ready. So, that's it for today. What do you think about today's top picks? How many of these films were you already familiar with, and which ones gave you the strongest reaction? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. For now, I'll try to bring you one new video per week, and we'll see how it goes from there. Also, let me know if you're enjoying the new quality. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.